Hello, fellow members of the Plex Media Server Support Group. There's a new post and I have time to make a quick video before dinner. So Eric posted as being new to the group with a Synology NAS, which he has not named yet. So Eric, this is for you. I've got a bunch of Plex videos about a Synology NAS. Right now you have two options. You can have a Plex package installed, which you probably have already installed, or you can do a Docker container install. And if you don't have any libraries set up yet, you may want to do Docker instead. But let's talk about Plex. If it's going to be an all-around media server for you, great. If it's just going to do music, you really need to use a program called Music Brains Picard to get your music prepped for Plex. You're new to Plex, so you don't know a lot yet, but everything with a TV show library or a movie library depends on, let's see, where's my window? Depends on the structure of the media and how the media is named. So let me go this way. I have three servers running right now. A test one on both my Synology NASs. My media is on my 1520 Plus NAS, but my real server is on a different piece of faster hardware. So let's start there before we talk about files. If your Synology NAS is a 2020 model year, 2020 Plus, 720 Plus, 920 Plus, 1520 Plus, it has a 9th gen Intel Celeron processor that has a embedded iGPU in it, and the iGPU label would be UHD Graphics 600, which is really a decent iGPU for Plex transcoding. And I know you don't know what that means yet, but a lot depends on what NAS you have. If you have an older 1019 Plus or a 918 Plus, that's a slightly older Celeron processor. It does have an iGPU. It's pretty comparable to the 2020 model years, but this is a little bit better. So we need to know what NAS you have before I suggest a Docker install for you. Because a Docker install doesn't have to worry about permissions. You never have to worry about whether DSM has an update that Plex needs to be fixed for, like a lot of people experience going from DSM 6 to DSM 7. So, but the bottom line is right at the beginning is where we want to start. And I'm disjointed. I never prep for a video. I just launch into them, and sometimes I think clearer than I do at other times. So this is accessing my 1520 NAS. And you need to start with one media share. Now this is my main media share for my regular server. This is a test one made up of all public domain media, so if I'm doing a tutorial I can show video playing and not get a YouTube strike. I think you should create a sort library for every type of Plex library. If you're only going to have a music library, you just need one folder in the main media share. But if you're going to have more than one library, you want it all in one media share, and you divide it up into folders. If you're only going to have one music library, one TV show library, and one movie library, you really just need 3 libraries. But if your server might grow, use a nested approach. Use a sort library for all movie libraries. So I have an example of a documentary movie library, one for DVR purposes, one for kids movies, and one for the main movie library. And the same with a TV show library. There's one for DVR, one for kids shows, and one for regular TV shows. Now there's not many cases where you might have multiple music libraries, but I set this up anyway. So I named this funny. I didn't name it music-library in order to remember to talk about this. So you could just have all your artists in this folder and not use another folder below it like I'm using, And then Plex would have the artist thrown in here. And again, this doesn't really matter on structure. It's all embedded tags inside each MP3 folder is how Plex will scan it properly in. With a movie library, it depends on structure. So once you start getting into the Plex support documents, the main document for naming movies tells you to take the movie name directly from either IMDb or the movie database. And that would be this. It's always this format. There's no underscores or periods replacing natural spaces. It's just as you see it. And then for added matching insurance, you can put the source ID from either database, either IMDb or TMDB, after the proper movie name. And this is literally a copy and paste from IMDb or TMDB. Most of us use TMDB, but some people use IMDb. So then the source ID is always in the curly Q brackets, and you define which database you're going to point Plex to. In this case, it's TMDB, and then it's dash and the database number, which will be in the URL window of whatever you're looking up. For IMDb, it would be simply a change to IMDb like that, and then they have a longer reference number that always starts with TT. So then inside the proper movie folder, now I repeat the process. This isn't necessary. It's not necessary to put the source ID in the file name, but I do. But you need the same name as what it's in the database again. Then it can just be .mkv or MP4. You don't need anything else. I throw extra descriptive information in, and that can come after a space dash space, and you can put anything you want after that. And you could actually have multiple versions of the same movie, and this is called versioning. Some people might just do a space dash space 720p and then repeat it for a 1080p version and repeat it for a 4K version. And there's a Plex versioning document for movies. There's also an edition one too, but we won't get into that. So this is proper structure, but a music library, it doesn't matter what the structure is. And it was really hard to come across public domain music media. So let me try this one. I'm going to open this up into MusicBrainz Picard. Well, I guess I can't do that. I'll have to drag it in. So I'll just drag the whole album in. Maybe. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't do it from my NAS. So let me just go off screen for a second. It's all about not violating group rules. All right, let me paste that album to my local drive, and now I can drag it in. And this is an example of an album that already matched up. If I see the gold CD in this column, everything's matched up to the database. And what I mean is when I click on a song or even the whole album, we have rich metadata. Plex depends on this rich metadata for matching. Now, I could manually change all of this by highlighting all the songs or an individual song or the whole group, and I could give this artist name, or I could change it to anything I want. If music isn't in a database, Plex still relies on the embedded metadata to properly scan your music in. So say you liked, let's say the Beatles or something, and you wanted to create your own compilation album by stealing 3 songs from the White Album and 3 from Rubber Soul and 3 from I don't know, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. No matter how you format them, rename the files, or what folder you put them in, each group of 3 songs will still have its original metadata from the original album. And if you scan that in, you'll have 3 partial albums of 3 songs each, even though they're grouped together on your storage in your storage folder. So you can solve that by getting rid of the original metadata and replacing it with your own. So the album artist would be the Beatles, the artist would be the Beatles, but the album name, which is someplace here, would be whatever you want to call it. I'm sorry, the album right here would be whatever you wanted to call it. It could be Eric's Beatles mix, or Eric's Beatles mixtape, whatever you want to call it. And once you adjust that metadata, Plex will then scan it in, even though there's not a match in the database. And MusicBrainz Picard lets you embed a cover art too. So if you did create your own compilation albums, you can also create your own custom artwork to drag into MusicBrainz Picard and save it all. So I've got multiple videos on MusicBrainz Picard, but that's where you need to start before you try to scan a music library in, unless you've ripped every bit of your own music yourself with a ripping program that goes out to some of these same databases that MusicBrainz Picard looks to pull in good metadata during the ripping. And if your music collection is as old as mine, I'd say only 30% of my large music collection scanned into Plex correctly the first time. I went through it all over the course of 4, 5, 6 months slowly, fixing all the embedded metadata, and now it's scanned into Plex nicely. So let's give you a peek at that first, because it really will look messy. So let me change to my main server and go to my music library, and I have a big collection. Too big that it's not refreshing the web app fast. So let me see, if I go into, who do I want to go into? If I go into Alicia Keys, Plex is going to have some suggestions, and you'll see the 7 albums I have by her, and you'll see the 2 live albums, and then Plex will suggest similar artists. So I would keep your music in a separate directory than where it's going to be located in Plex. It may have to be moved back one artist at a time to your computer or laptop to use MusicBrainz Picard, and then once you've got it properly set up, then move it into its final destination. So permissions are going to be something to solve, because your library can't see the music. So I want to walk you through adding a music library so you know what you should see. And again, I'm in the wrong spot. Okay, I'm back on the NAS. So this is the shared folder on the Synology NAS that this small Plex server install has access to. I've got my sort library folders. Inside the music sort folder is the main music library, and this is what we hope to see. So let's go back to Plex, the web app, and let me change back to this test server, and I can go down to Manage Libraries and Add Library. I'll pick Music. I'll just give it a unique name so it's not the same plain music as my other server. I'll click Next, which is basically going to add folders. And the Docker install creates an alias, basically. So my alias is Plex Media. And that's how I define my Docker container. so it's easy to see. So if I click into that, now I see those sort folders. And if you don't have the proper permissions, you should see the same thing. Click into music, click into music main. Now I see the 3 artists, and now I can click add. And then there's some advanced features. I'm not in the iOS world or the Apple world at all, so I have no idea what import from iTunes does. I would suggest, until you're sure everything scans in correctly, to leave sonic analysis off. And that will depend on the processing power of your NAS too. We don't know the model yet. I would not say prefer local metadata, because then Plex will only use the local metadata. If Plex can't make a match to the database, leaving this unchecked, Plex will still use local metadata when it needs to. So there really isn't anything to change. You want to be using all the default settings, which is just what I'm showing here. So we'll see that Plex is scanning, and these are my 2 other servers. I have another test one on an older Synology NAS to help people with that model, and this is my main server. So it's all scanned in. I can click on it, and Plex found those artists. It has these 9 songs. It pulled in a description of the album. This is only one song. I just grabbed an older public domain song. It's really old. It's not really from 2013. The song itself is public domain. This album may not be. And then a couple songs by Clara Smith, who's from the 20s. And I think I manually added this artwork. I don't think Plex matched it up this way. I think I set these 2 songs up so they'd scan as a manual album, which is why you don't see any description of the artist or the album here. Versus this one, which is a real album. And this is important to know. If the album or the CD isn't listed in the database, Plex will have nothing to match to, and instead it will match like this. Well, it's not really matched. It'll scan like this. You can edit it, and you can do anything you want. This is my... You can assign metadata here. Shows up right there. If you didn't want to use MusicBrainz Picard to inject cover art, you could do that right here yourself. And this is what Plex has for the artist. We haven't shown that yet. So I think it's better to inject that type of custom metadata in with MusicBrainz Picard. That way, if you ever add the media to a new server in the future, it scans in correctly and you don't have to fix things on the backside. So if I hit the library tab, now you see my artist. And there's not a poster for various artists, but you can find one and add that to jazz things up. So if I click into Clara Smith, you'll see just what we saw. If I click into this guy, you'll see the one album, and that's kind of how it all works. So if you're going to have a movie library too, or a TV show library, let's show you that process while we're at it. So I already have this, and I just added a fun little description. If any of my users see this, which they shouldn't, call me. So I'm going to add a TV show library. Select TV shows. You can name it anything you want. We'll leave this one as TV shows. Let me back up. Add a library, TV shows. I don't have to hit next. I can just hit add folders if I want to. Browse for media. It's the same alias that's defined in my Docker container. Plex Media. This time I'll hit the TV library sort folder, and I want to add the main library, not the kids or the DVR. There's only 3 shows, and I don't know if all episodes are public domain, but the episodes I have for these 3 shows are public domain. So when I see the shows, I can add. And again, there's advanced settings. You always want to use the default scanner and agent. And the only thing that I do is I make one change. Because as I talked about with, let me see, where is that change? Episode ordering. I changed to the TVDB. The TV database versus the movie database are the two databases that Plex pulls from when matching episodes. The movie database only shows aired ordering, just like it aired on network TV. The TV database also has an alternate DVD order, which can come in handy. You can't set it for DVD order here, but at the show level, you can change an individual show to the DVD ordering from TVDB, even if you've selected the movie database here. But I do all my naming either manually or with FileBot from this database, so I set this up as a default episode ordering. In reality, Plex scrapes both databases and combines all that information to be their Plex TV series scanner and Plex series agent. They do the same thing for a movie library. They scrape IMDb and the movie database daily and combine that into the latest movie scanner and agent. And you really can't separate things out. But with a TV show library, you can point episode ordering to either one or the other. And the nice thing about the TV database is that it lists some virtual series that don't exist over at the movie database. And there's series listed that way at TVDB for our convenience. If you're someone that might collect kid cartoons, especially older ones, there's Looney Tune cartoons going back to like 1929, and that's one of the rare TV shows that would use a structure of, well, let me pull my structure back in. I know this is a lot for somebody new, but you can save the video and watch it. So with a TV show library, it's always the proper show name from the movie database or the proper show name from the TV database with a year added manually. And if we go into one, it's always the season 01 structure, and then special episodes can go into season 00 or a folder called specials. Plex says both are legal. Well, a show like Looney Tunes will have a season space 1929 through season space 2023. It's a long-running assembly of movie shorts that have been listed at the TV database as if it was a virtual TV show. That way, there's like 1,000 or 1,100 episodes in that listing. If you've got 50 of those, or you've got 500 of those, imagine 500 movie shorts, 10, 15 minutes long, clogging up your main movie library, where they could be in a TV show library organized neatly for you. Tom and Jerry movie shorts are the same way. Those specials are labeled Special 1940, 1950, and 1960. All the Ken Burns PBS documentaries have all separate listings in both databases. But at TVDB, there's also a special listings called Ken Burns Films, and that uses the year with the season numbers. So I forget, was baseball like 2005 or something, or 2008? Season 2008 would be just the one documentary, where his 2023 season and in this listing is The American Buffalo, just 2 episodes. So I always make a case for using TVDB right off the bat as your source for naming and how you set up a Plex library. And really nothing else needs to be changed, and it won't hurt anything to name from the movie database. The larger your library grows, you might come across something that's not in the movie database, and you may need the TV database, but you can make that change manually at the show level when it doesn't scan. So I know this is a lot, but I'm scanning that library now. and everything scans in perfectly because it's properly named, and permissions are set in the definition of the Docker container. I'm going to share some links with you. I'm going to share some a photo of how to organize your media. And if you want help getting a Docker container set up, let me know. I can give you some personalized help. I can't remote in and do it for you. That'll never happen with anybody. But I can make little videos to get you unstuck. And it's really just following a set of instructions. It's these instructions. It's the Marius hosting website. Everything on this site is Synology and Docker centered. And if your Synology NAS does not have an iGPU, he has one install for you. The simple guide. If you have an iGPU that's capable of hardware transcoding, you can follow this guide. And I even have a install video already made under DSM-6, but to watch my video and follow along with this, it's only a few changes to get this going. So I highly recommend Docker. I don't have a package install under DSM-7 to troubleshoot with you, but I could even probably help with that. But my thought right now is the permissions are not set properly to see your music. But before you start adding your music and become frustrated because it doesn't add correctly, you've got to use MusicBrainz Picard to get it set up with embedded tags or metadata first before you scan it into Plex. So I know this is running long. I'm going to get it onto YouTube, and if you're interested, I've got more videos for you, and we'll go at your pace. Thanks for watching.